Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Unapologetically Loving Myself. My name is Annemarie. So welcome for those who are here for the first time. This channel is here to support and guide and hopefully give some tools to anyone who is struggling in or trying to navigate in narcissistic and toxic relationships. So you will often hear me say narcissistic personalities because I don't really like the word narcissism, and today it seems to have become watered down and that everyone is using the word narcissist now. Even if you don't, when people don't get their own way, it's like, well, you're a narcissist. And it's not like that at all. So it's sad because those who are true victims of narcissistic abuse are once again being pushed under the carpet and minimized. And so there's a lot of shame attached to this kind of abuse that's pretty much unseen, because people with narcissistic tendencies are very, very good at putting on an amazing front in front of others. And that's why it is domestic violence, because it's always done behind closed doors. It's very rare, especially when you're dealing with someone who has covert narcissistic tendencies. So I don't like to say that people are narcissists, it's their behavior, okay? Because everyone, as far as I understand, as a spiritual being, we all are souls, but those who feed into that narcissistic personality have simply forgotten who they are, and they've gotten caught up in their roles, and they've forgotten who they truly are, and so they are attached to their roles. And so it's much easier than to blame others and to shame others rather than take accountability. So today I wanted to talk with you about self-respect and remaining on your lotus throne, on your inner throne as a self-sovereign. So, because firstly understanding that when I step off myself and when I step off my throne of self-respect, at that very second, not only am I giving away my power because I'm then reacting. The only reason we step off our throne is because we react. And when I react, I hand my power straight over to the person or situation in front of me. And when you're dealing with someone who has these narcissistic tendencies, they know how to poke your old wounds, and they know, and because they want to elicit a reaction out of you. And most of us who have been, and of course I've been in an abusive narcissistic relationship, so I'm speaking from personal experience as well as helping those on a professional level through life coaching and hypnotherapy and Neuro-Transformational therapy. So really understanding that the second I step off my throne, not only do I disrespect myself, I at that point start enabling and rewarding this other person. And so each time we kind of play into their hand. And at that point we are contributing, we are participating, which of course we don't realize we're doing because we're busy trying to either defend ourselves or trying to diffuse the situation. But often, especially if we are people pleasers, what happens is instead of diffusing the situation, I'm now rewarding and I'm now enabling this other person, and I'm throwing myself under the bus in the process. Forget about that. It doesn't matter that they've already thrown me under the bus. I'm now throwing myself under the bus. Because narcissistic personalities need to feel good about themselves because they can't regulate their own emotions. So they need your supply, and a reaction from you is a form of supply. Whether it's a positive reaction or a negative, it doesn't matter. Usually they're looking for that negative reaction because then they can feel better about themselves. Okay? And when they feel better about themselves, you generally feel worse because you've compromised yourself, you've abandoned yourself at that point to keep the peace, to fix the relationship. If you have people-pleasing tendencies, you tend to want to fix things, and often at the detriment of your own health and well-being. So we need to learn to stop doing that. Okay, so I've drawn a little, now you have to excuse me, I'm old school, so I'm not very good with the whole technology thing. And so I'm learning, but in the meantime, I'm going to keep it very simple, and this is my makeshift little whiteboard. So as you can see, I've got victim, I've got perpetrator, and I've got rescuer. Sorry, it's a bit difficult doing it mirror image. So what happens is, let's say the perpetrator hurts me. Okay? The perpetrator hurts me. They might say or do something that hurts me. And so as the rescuer, I then want to hold them accountable. And I may say something like, are you aware that hurt me? Or that was really uncalled for, or that was really painful what you did, or whatever we might say, right? We try and hold them accountable. And we might start off being gentle about it, and we get more and more aggressive because things just get more and more, it becomes this downward spiral because they're slowly chipping away at your confidence, at your self-esteem, at your own truth, your own well-being. And it's a bit like the frog being boiled in the water, in the pot, You don't realise the water is slowly turned up little bit by little bit, and they don't even realise they're being cooked. It's kind of a similar analogy that we don't even realise until we've hit rock bottom and we have no tools left to save ourselves. Because what we've been doing is we've been trying to save, the relationship. And when we try and fix the relationship, we try and fix them, right? And so to try and fix the relationship, and we throw ourselves under the bus in the process. Sorry, I went around in a bit of circle then, but I hope you understand where I'm going so far. So they hurt me. They've done something or said something to hurt me. I've held them accountable. Now they turn around and now they become the victim. Why are you taking everything so serious? I was only joking. You always take everything so personal. You're so sensitive. You need to get over yourself, whatever they might tell you, right? So then what happens is then I start rescuing them. I start saying, it's okay, don't worry about it. And I'll shrink myself accordingly just to keep the peace. And so they've got a little, and what we've done in the process is we've just rewarded them for that behavior. Okay, because we've held them accountable, but then we've backtracked because now they've become the victim and we feel bad because they elicit that guilt in us. And so we feel bad for them, especially if they become all emotional and all, I didn't mean it. And, you take things so serious. Excuse me. You're so sensitive. You shouldn't take it so sensitive. I didn't mean it like that. And so we instantly feel bad for them. But what we do is we reward them, right? And so what happens is now internally they've got a little smile, and they may not start off knowing what they're doing, and we don't know what we're doing, right? We're thinking we're doing the right thing by simmering things down, but we've just rewarded them, so they know, I just got away with that. And if they've done that since childhood by throwing tantrums, this is really an adult tantrum that we're looking at. Okay, so they've got a little inner smile on their dial, and so they go back to being the perpetrator. Maybe not straight away, but they've clocked that up. They've memorized that because they are training you. Okay, so then the next time they will do it again. Then I will hold them accountable. Then they will go into the victim space, and I will reward them by saying, it's okay, don't worry about it. Oh, okay, he's actually upset this time, or she's actually upset this time. Oh, they're actually showing some emotion. Oh, they're actually crying. Wow, okay, there's some change. No, they learn to up the ante because each time I keep rescuing, but each time I get clearer and I'm going, hang on, no, that's not okay. So I get firmer with my boundaries, and they're not liking it. Like a child who's throwing a tantrum, they're not going to like you setting boundaries. So they're going to up the ante every time. But like the frog in the pond is very, very subtle. And we don't know that we're fighting harder and harder for less and less. Okay? But we are now contributing because we are rewarding them. We're giving them permission now, in a sense, not consciously, because we think we're trying to keep the peace. And so they will either use, so I'm hoping that little diagram makes a bit of sense. It's very simple once we get it, because then we go, wow, okay. And we look back in our relationship and we can see how this plays out. And this becomes more and more ingrained. They do so. The perpetrator goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We go here and then we go here. So we go back and forth and we go back and forth. Okay, and it just becomes this vicious cycle, and they feel more and more in control, and we feel more and more, or we feel less and less good about ourselves. And all we've done is we've stepped off our throne every time. If I remain on my throne, I learn to be silent. And okay, he's done it again, she's done it again. Let me not rescue. Let me not hold them accountable, because clearly they're not going to change. They want me to hold them accountable so then they can become the victim, and then I will reward them. I will rescue them, and it's what it is. I end up enabling that behavior. I end up reinforcing that behavior. That's how I contribute. So when people say, "Oh, well, it's your choice," and it's your choice, and you have a role to play in it, and you're allowing it. I really don't like it when people say you're allowing it. Because you're not, no one would consciously allow someone else to abuse them. This is all done in such a subtle way, and it's eroding our self-confidence. It's eroding our self-esteem, and it's validating those old wounds that I've probably been carrying since childhood. And if you look back in your life, you will recognize your pattern. And this isn't about them. It isn't about, they're not bad, you're not bad. It's about healing your pattern to stop rescuing them. So don't let anyone put that shame on you when they say, but you have a choice in this. No, people think that you have informed decision making in this. When someone is not being honest, you don't have an informed knowledge to make an informed decision. Okay, so you have to learn to forgive yourself in the process, but you do have to get back on your throne. And people with narcissistic tendencies have a way to elicit, they elicit 3 reactions out of us. It's guilt, it's obligation, or it's fear. Often all 3. Okay? And it may look like something like I just said earlier, you would take things too seriously, you take it, you're too sensitive. I didn't mean it. I was only joking. Why can't you take a joke? So instantly I feel guilty and I feel obligated to, okay, I'm being too serious. Okay, I better not be. So I feel obligated to change me. But what I'm doing is I'm now compromising my own value. I've stepped off my throne and I'm compromising my own value, and I'm now enabling and rewarding this other person for their bad behavior. So they get to the point where they think, well, can't be that bad, they're still here, right? And so they will up the ante, because what happens is they start pushing their boundaries further and further to see how far they can push you. When I had to leave my 23-year relationship last year, one of the most painful decisions I've ever had to make, but he kind of did me a favor, because he got to the point where he so overplayed his hand, he got so cruel, he pushed me out so far out of the relationship that I had to keep walking. And I think it would have shocked him, because 23 years I was always available for him. And all of a sudden I wasn't available anymore. And so the cruelty escalated. So I had to just learn to be silent until I was able to leave the situation altogether, because I didn't like myself anymore. I didn't like the way I was reacting. I didn't know myself anymore. That person in that relationship wasn't me. Okay, and when you stop liking yourself, because there's already deep down from that people pleasing, from that old childhood wounds, you were taught at a very early age that when you show up as your authentic self, it's not going to be okay. What happens is when we show up as our authentic self, with our bright light sparkling, it tends to show others their shadows. And how dare I show them? I don't even have to say anything. People are often attracted to this, and then eventually, because they want to be like you, then they end up tearing you down for the rest of the relationship. They will bring you up and then they will tear you down. They will bring you up and they will tear you down. And they will bring you up and they will tear you down. And if we aren't aware of this, we end up participating, because we get so confused. Part of their weaponizing is to use our own weaknesses. And so we need to release I think I've mentioned this in one of the other videos, that we need to let go of our naivety to think that because I wouldn't go that low, I would never deliberately poke someone else's wounds to get what I want. Don't assume that others won't either. Because people with narcissistic tendencies, they are used to getting what they want. So they don't care how much it hurts you. Okay? And that's the most painful realization to recognize, is they don't care. And people go, oh, but deep down, no. When it gets, doesn't mean that they don't love you and all the rest of it, but when it comes to to getting their way, if you're standing in the way of that, they don't care what they do to hurt you, to get what they want, because that's what they're used to. That's what I mean by adult tantrum. And so the other thing, like I said, they elicit guilt, obligation, or fear. And the fear is either I'm scared, I'm afraid of being hurt physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, or the fear of them leaving me. Because if you look in your relationship, there will always be that tiny fear in the background that, would they be there for me if I really needed them? Would they really be there? Right? Or will they leave me to drown? And, well, I had to learn the hard way. I was left to bleed out. I was left to drown. I was thrown out. I was tossed out of my relationship, out of my life, because at that point he realized he wasn't backing down at all, and he admitted that. He didn't care how deep he dug the hole. He didn't care who he hurt in the process, including himself, because he wasn't backing down. And so didn't matter what the cost was, he wasn't backing down. So sadly, if we've stepped off our throne to make a relationship work because of our own low self-worth issues, we're the ones that have to pick up the pieces. And so for the last 11 months, I've been working very hard on reclaiming my power, and it has been the most painful part of my journey and part of my 65 years on this earth. But I'm here to tell you that it does get better if I learn to, one, remain on my throne and really practice that self-respect and really sit with what does self-respect really look like. Okay, and I need to be prepared to walk away, or I need to be prepared to let them walk away. If I'm going to compromise myself and step off my throne, because the second I'm stepping off my throne, I'm now in the mud with them, because I'm now operating in their shadow, not even my own shadow, in their shadow. So we get so ingrained, we get so entangled, we don't even know anymore what's my stuff, what's their stuff. And it becomes so enmeshed and so confusing and so destabilizing. That's when we end up compromising ourselves. And, we're so used to them throwing us under the bus that we now, and so used to gaslighting us, that we now throw ourselves under the bus, and that we now gaslight ourselves just to keep the relationship working. And we will convince ourselves, and they will convince us, oh wow, okay, things are changing, things are fine, maybe this is that change, maybe this is the this time he will keep his, or she will keep her, his or her promise. There's I think I mentioned this before too. Maya Angelou has a beautiful saying that says, when people show you who they are, believe them. So don't listen to their words, listen to their actions. Okay, and start paying attention to how you are reacting. When I react, I've stepped off my throne. Because when I remain as a self-sovereign in my power on my throne, and I invite others to step up onto the stage, rather than me get off and jump into the quicksand, into the mud to save them, everyone drowns. And this isn't to blame yourself, okay? You've come from a good space. You've come from a space of genuinely wanting to make things work, not knowing what you were dealing with. I had no idea until the last 3 years of the relationship, and I just thought he was difficult, right? And he had me convinced he had ADD, so I always made allowances for it. And if you have an empathic nature, others will take advantage of that. And I don't ever want you to lose that nature, because that's also your superpower. But you need to learn to contain it, and you need to learn to give to yourself first. That is part of staying on your throne in your self-respect. It means to stay on your throne, to fill your own cup first, because then the divine can fill you up as well. And then the divine knows that, okay, it's between us two. It's not between them and everyone else, right? But the second I step off my throne, I'm letting go of this connection, and I'm stepping onto the battlefield. And if I don't have my tools to get back on my throne, I'm going to go deeper and deeper into enemy territory. And that's where a narcissistic personality, someone who's very entitled, who's used to getting their way, they're going to lure you in. When I look back, the amount of times where I remember even saying to him many times, it's like, I feel like you're constantly booby trapping me, right? Each time you think that you're on the same page again, before you know it, they're already off somewhere else. And so that's their game, to keep you confused, to keep you destabilized. And if you are one of the souls who not only people please, but you also tend to forget what actually happened and start going, maybe it was me, maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe I do take things too serious. Maybe I don't have a sense of humour. Maybe I did misunderstand them. Maybe I did expect too much, right? No, you need to apply the brake and turn inward and remind yourself of your own inner beauty and your own love, because they want to strip you from all that, because they can't. Like I said, initially they're very attracted to it because that's what they want to be like, and they convince you because they're very good at mirroring, but they can't keep it up because it's not their genuine nature. Their genuine nature is, what can I get from you? And I should have seen that first red flag, because I remember very early in the start when we talked about, how we enter a relationship. And I remember saying something like, because I like this person and I want to get to connect with this person more. And I remember him very clearly saying, I look at them to see what I can get. And it never even dawned on me. And 23 years ago, narcissism, the narcissistic abuse wasn't even known. So, but I remember looking at him going, oh, that's a bit distorted. But I never saw that as a warning sign. I never saw that as a red flag. I just remember saying, oh, that's a little bit distorted. That's a distorted view. And he kind of just shrugged his shoulders and he said, oh, well, that's just the way I am. And I guess unconsciously the rescuer for me came out and not intentionally going, oh, I can fix this person, because we don't go into a relationship thinking, oh, I'm going to fix this person. We attract what we need to heal in ourselves. So part of my healing was and of course I didn't know this back then, you attract those souls that help you recognize what you need to heal. When people talk about the world around you is a mirror, doesn't mean that you necessarily behave like them, because I used to get really annoyed when people go, oh, but it's a mirror of you. And it's like, well, hang on, I know I don't behave like that. But what it is, it's a mirror of what you need to change. So the people pleasing, because somewhere, I don't know if I said this earlier, but I'll say it again, somewhere along the line we've been taught that our authentic self wasn't enough. So the only way we felt safe was to please, was to make someone else happy. And then we didn't know that became our pattern, that became our defense mechanism. So anytime we went into a relationship, a friendship, whatever, situationship, whatever you call it these days, we would go in with the right intention, or I would go in with the right intention, not knowing that I'm attracting someone who, again, they don't know it either at the time, but they get better at it. And so we attract each other to heal our inner wounds. But narcissistic personalities don't want to be accountable, because why should they? They've always managed to get their way, so they don't see them as the problem. And they love you while you do things for them. The second you say no, you become the problem. Well, how come you're saying no now, right? Because I've always gotten my way. And again, they may not consciously think that, but it happens in the background. And so this is how we start. There's a lot of unhealed adults in this world, and it's not about blaming parents. It's not about, we all did the best we could. We didn't know. None of us knew any different now. We have a lot more education about this stuff these days. But so we need to stop rescuing. We need to stop fixing. We need to stop rewarding people for their bad behavior. And if calling them out isn't enough, we need to learn to respect ourselves and step away from it. We need to learn to let them go. Because part of the toxicity is we dim our light. I shrink myself more and more and more, because if I want to keep growing and the gap gets too big, I'm going to shrink myself to not leave them behind. There's the guilt. There's the obligation, right? And so they get used to pulling and pushing us. They pull us in, right? They future fake us. They love bomb us. They do whatever. And you think, oh, it's okay this time, things are changing, until the next time. And then as soon as you've let your guard down, then they start devaluing you, and then they discard you. And then as soon as you either pull away or you try and, in the past that's what would happen, then I would be shocked and I would pull away, and then they would come forward again. So then they start future faking you again, start telling you all these things that they're going to do, and they might do it for a little while. And so they learn to give you just enough to keep you hooked in. They will give you the bare minimum. And this is what I mean by we will start fighting harder and harder for less and less. Because I remember saying to him at the end, you're giving me nothing to work with anymore. I feel like there's nothing left of the rope. I've got nothing to hang on to anymore. And that's when I got discarded the most, because he knew that I had nothing left, and then there was all the contempt and all the disgust towards me, which makes you feel so unlovable. It makes you feel so dirty and disgusting and ashamed that you are so unlovable, that I could not make this relationship work. That's what I walked away believing. Now, of course, I understand. No, I was the one that made it work for 23 years. I was the only stable force in his life for 23 years. But he had me convinced it was the other way around. And so I walked away with all this shame, thinking after everything I've done, I still couldn't make it work. Can you hear that negative self-talk? I've had to change that, because I'll be damned if I'm going to do it again. I will not attract this kind of energy again. I have to change my energy by getting back on my throne, straightening my little crown, and staying there. And so I need to really understand what it looks like to respect myself. And the more I respect myself, I will start attracting those aligned with that respect. Others who respect themselves, who are not in my life to try and take from me. But it's going to be a more reciprocal relationship, interaction, whatever it may be, that is going to be more of a giving and receiving. It's not take. It's giving and receiving. But until then, it's okay to just step back and just work and heal yourself. Get back on your throne, straighten your crown, take a breath, stabilize yourself, center yourself. We've got to come back to center. We've got to come back to soul. I am a peaceful soul. I am a powerful soul. I am a loving soul. To remind myself that I am a being of love and of light. So I hope that made a little bit of sense. I probably went off on a little bit of a tangent there. And please remember to like, share, subscribe and comment, because it does help build the channel, and it will help build awareness for those who are really struggling. And keep in mind that I haven't been online for a very long time, and as I said in one of my other videos, I deleted all my social media, and so I'm rebuilding online to try and help others from what I've learned, and also through my life coaching and so forth. So please be gentle with me and don't be too critical, because I'm not a professional YouTuber or TikToker, and I don't profess to be, and I don't want to be. I'm just really here so I'm being open and honest and as vulnerable as I can be. So on that note, I'm going to leave you, and I will talk to you next time. Okay? Love you. Bye for now.